I am Adam Davis, founder and executive director of Game to Grow. And I just wanted to reach out and say thank you to you and everyone who donated in support of our mission because those proceeds of that donation all go to our scholarship fund that allows us to have more people attend our groups, more kids, more teens, more adolescents, more adults even who can come to a tabletop role playing game group and get a chance to make a friend, sometimes for the first time, really important opportunity for them to build some real life skills, and that was made possible through the donations. Thanks to you, Sam, and thanks to the people who participated. So I wanted to say that very very clearly to everyone to thank you so much for the impact of your donation.
Well, it was our pleasure doing it. Because, yeah, we were just searching around for charities to do with tabletop and stuff that we were passionate about. And I mean, Game to Grow was one of the first that came up. And a few people were like, oh, well, it's in America. Will it? But I mean, wherever in the world, I mean, charity does good at the end of the day.
Absolutely. And we actually, I am, and our home base is built in the Pacific Northwest of the United States of America. We actually, because all of our groups are virtual now, they're not restricted to people in our area. So we actually have people participating in our groups from the UK, from other parts of Europe, from Australia, from Malaysia. So it is not, we're not just an American charity anymore. We are actually we have a global, an emerging global presence. So there are maybe even some people who uh, could watch the stream, who might have learned about it, who might have also been able to get some access to those services. So I super appreciate it.
It was partially recommended to us by one of the DMs, Charlie, who did the first and second, because apparently when he was in sixth form, he was doing a piece of work about how tabletop RPGs help reduce anxiety and stress. And I'm pretty sure he might have had a call with one of you about it from the charity. So,
Oh, awesome. That's one of the ways we like to pay it forward. I mentioned earlier before we got on the call that I was talking to someone else in England today, which is a cool thing for me to be able to do, to have two phone calls with folks in England. And that was a student who was researching the therapeutic application of role playing games. And so one thing that I like to do is to sort of pay it forward is I like to talk to students and give them some guidance about how to use these games as therapeutic or educational tools. When I was in graduate school, a lot of professionals gave their time to help me find my way in the world, and so I like to pay that forward. So I'm so glad to hear that that was meaningful to him.
yeah, I mean, we're obviously a society for a uni, so we're like partially attached. We're more recreational, but like there are societies that are kind of more dedicated to like stress relief being an out for people stressed about uni. Yeah, do you have any advice on how we as a society could, um, well, I suppose, do better as far as stress relief? Obviously, in the current times, it's a bit harder, but like,
Right. So I'm not prepared to give great overarching advice for how to navigate COVID because it's been quite a year for all of us, and I'm not prepared to give a nice, succinct takeaway that would make everything better. But I do think that one of the things that we're seeing as a response to COVID is this increase in loneliness. But I think, or increase in isolation, really. But it's the isolation is sort of revealing to us how the loneliness was already there, and a lot of us struggled to connect with other people before we were even told we had to stay in our apartments. So I think one of the great takeaways that we can see with this, and the advice that I would give now, is how important it has been to see how meaningful a little bit of social contact can be, especially for those of us that play tabletop RPGs, that are creating a space where people can feel like they belong. Because that has been one of the biggest consequences of being socially isolated, is that loneliness plus isolation leads to a lot of depression, leads to a lot of that languishing that keeps us from living the life that we want to live. So I would say to you, as university students, especially university students who are excited about and connecting with each other with games, that's your superpower. And I would make sure you continue to spread the table so there's more seats at that table that more people can come and play.
yeah, I mean, definitely great advice. We like, at the start, we give an hour just for people to talk to each other because we know It's quite a rare thing to do. Obviously, it's getting a little better over here. Lockdown's being eased, but still, we think it's important that people just have time to just talk and converse with other people
Yeah.
who they probably haven't seen otherwise.
Oh, it's so valuable just to have some time to connect and be seen so that you can feel like your presence is validated and your presence is cared about. That can be such an important and transformational experience, especially when we're all so remote right now. I would love for you to tell me more about the society.
So yeah, I'm a third year student, and when I started uni, I was like, okay, where are all the people that can play D&D with me? Where are all the board game people? And there wasn't a society, so I came up with starting one. And then last year, it really just kind of exploded, and I think we had about five D&D games spawn out of just the first few weeks. Um, and so that just built and built, and we have like mainly tabletop games during society time, which was like in the evening times on a Friday, just for
Mm.
people to chill and just see friends. Like it something very like good that's come out of this is the fact that most people in the society are like, I would have never talked to all these other people otherwise. So I've made way more friends in the society than I would have had in my course.
Oh,
So
that's so fantastic.
it is. And yeah, they've gone close. And yeah, because it is D&D and TTRPGs have a very unique way of making friendships that are just stronger, really. And because
Oh,
you can feel a lot closer with people that you just made stories up with.
absolutely. I think there's something really profound about what you just said because we as human beings are built through stories and we're built through play. And so what we do when we're using TTRPGs to connect with each other is not it's not something that's new. It's not something that's only been around since 1974 whenever Gary Gygax wrote, the first edition. What this is something that's in our DNA to gather around and create stories and play together. And I think there's something really, it's like a return home for a lot of us to play these TTRPGs together because it's something that humans used to do around the fires outside of caves. We'd look at the stars and make up stories together, right? That's ancestral. And so I think that there's something really, really refreshing about doing this, especially for uni students who are, leaving home a lot of the time to go to university and then get this opportunity to connect with people and do something that is it's in our bones.
Yeah, I think I've been listening to a podcast recently, and I think they said that in the brain, the section that does memory also deals with imagination. So, like, the memories you create whilst imagining stuff are like the strongest memories you have. And I just think that's really, really cool. And the fact that we can access that easily as plays of this kind of stuff.
Absolutely. If you think back on the like your best moments from any tabletop games you've played, you probably don't remember the table and the people at the table. You probably remember the dragons and the fireballs and the
Yeah.
moments. You remember how your imagination remembered this, right? I have a
Mm.
game that I still remember like it was yesterday that was from 2008 where the game master described the scene and we had made this whole plan to get past this road blockade and my character went up first to try to be the charismatic one and we made the deal that if I can't convince them to let us through then I would pull my earlobe, which would mean that the wizard would blow it up with a great big fireball. And I remember every moment. I remember like the description of my character's sweat dripping down their face. I remember the pulling my ear frantically. And I remember it as if I'm watching a cartoon or as if I'm watching a movie. Like I can picture the way the sun was baking the road that day. And I have no idea whose house I was at even. I remember who was there, but I don't remember whose house I was playing at. All of those things are so, like you were saying, so the memory is my imagination. The memory is
Mm.
not what snacks we had that day or anything like that.
To go back to my point, yeah, so they've made like good long lasting friendships from it. I think there were about um, 15, 20 people that were like regular attenders. Um, and then obviously COVID happened. Well, before that, we started planning this event because it was going to be 24 hours straight of D&D. We'd had a venue. We're in the midst of sorting out logistics and stuff. And then COVID happened, and we're like, oh no, um, we don't know what to do anymore. So
Mm-hmm.
like, okay, we've got to postpone it. And yeah, and at this point, John, who was our promotional manager, self-appointed promotional manager, we love him. We love him with everything we have. Had like gotten a lot of promoters in the TTRPG community, and he's like, "I'm really sorry. We're going to have to postpone at some point. We don't know when we're going to be able to redo it." So roll on to this year, and we were like, okay, it's been a year. We need to actually do this. 24 hours on Zoom, we weren't sure was viable, mainly because of tech issues and stuff like that. So we were like, okay,
Right.
why don't we do it over several days? Which then we came up with the title Dungeon a Day. From there, I think we had over like 30, 40 people involved with the whole of it. We got
Wow.
all the promoters back, and yeah, it went well, like $2,500. Like, I imagine that's amazing for you. To us, we didn't imagine we'd ever get there.
Oh,
Like
that's
that
amazing.
was it was insane. Like it just felt so good that we'd raised like so much money, and we'd like obviously partially it's the money, and also like that we'd inspired enough people to just give up their time and their time to watch us, and then also their money to help other people. So it was just so inspiring.
Absolutely. And I can't say enough how as I'm a founder of the organization and I've run groups helping people with TTRPGs for 10 years now. And what sort of what like we were saying earlier, when I see those donations come in, that translates in my mind to those kids that now get a chance to play. So I really like got emotional when I saw that the donation came those donations were coming in because it's such an important impact not only for the field to be able to raise money for this kind of thing, but also for those individuals who can now attend those groups because of the scholarship funds that was secured for them. So it's really, I cannot say enough how much I can thank you and everyone who gave up their time that over the course of the entire fundraiser.
Yeah, well, I'm sure hearing about where the money's going is because you telling me that, like, for you, it translates to these kids getting to be part of this. Like, it bridges a gap for me between now knowing where that money is, and I'm sure it will do for everyone that was involved, and everyone that donated will feel even better, knowing that yeah, it's more than just, oh, here's a sum of money. Like it's people's lives and like their enjoyment that we're helping to raise.
Absolutely, and I mentioned earlier we also have a training program, and we have discounted rates for our training program as well for students and for teachers, because every person who can come to our training program who can get trained also can then serve their own population in their own community. So it's what's great about the scholarship fund for our groups is that we can have more people attending those groups. That helps a single person. But when I can train somebody on how to do this, then that can help 30, 50, 100 people by multiplying that by that multiplier effect. So that's where we're really shifting as an organization, is not to see how many people we can help directly, but how many people we can help secondarily by training other people and utilizing these methods so that they can then utilize TTRPGs in their own communities to serve their own, whatever the population they want to work with is. So we actually have a training program for therapists and a training program for educators and a training program for just community members. And I hate saying just community members, but community members who aren't utilizing the game for therapeutic outcomes or for educational outcomes, who want to make their let's say, university a better place, make their gaming store a better place, whatever that the case is. They don't need to work on therapeutic outcomes or educational outcomes. They just want to lead a safe and supportive RPG experience that's inclusive. But then what we see with the trainees, we've had 100 and something mental health practitioners come through to be trained in being therapeutic game masters. So there, that is a very new and exciting phenomenon here. Is they're trained in the game to grow method of therapeutically applied role playing games. They come 18 hours of training, and then they do some consultation with us. We have some opportunities for them to be in peer consultation groups to talk to other therapeutic game masters, and then they are wherever they are around the country and around the world. Because, like I said earlier, we're no longer bound to the United States. We have trainees come into our training program pulling all-nighters because our training program starts at 9 a.m. Pacific time in the United States, and they're in Australia pulling an all-nighter, or South Africa, or we've had someone in Dublin. So there's people are coming around from around the world to be able to take what we do and then translate it into their own communities with their own perspectives on what that community needs. Because I can't claim to know everything about what the needs of Sydney, Australia are,
Mm.
but I can train that person to then better serve Sydney, Australia.
It is a new emerging field that, I mean, it kind of just seems obvious at the end of the day, doesn't it?
Right.
It's like, yeah, we feel better doing it, so why not do it in other settings that will genuinely help people?
Exactly. And like I said earlier, it is new, but it's not. We're built to do this. We're built to connect with each other and play, and that's what we're just leveraging what's intrinsically motivating about a TTRPG and intrinsically rewarding, and the opportunities that are in that game for us to gain that insight and have that personal reflection, and then utilizing that for therapeutic outcomes or educational outcomes or just community building. And
Mm.
those are all part of what we talk about in the training program, and part of what we're hoping that more people can then take. Part of the mission of Game to Grow is not just the direct services and not just training, but also raising awareness about the life enriching magic of games of all kinds and how we can better utilize them to make our lives better, but our communities stronger as well. So what you're doing with the society right now is it's on mission for us to get excited about that, because what you're doing is you're utilizing these games to help people who might be feeling isolated, who might be feeling alone, and have a place where they can not just see each other and connect over something fun, but they can actually form meaningful relationships where someone doesn't show up to one session and then the next session they come and everyone says, "Where were you? We missed you last week. You're our healer and you weren't here." Right? And then that person has the feeling of, I'd like their presence is appreciated and their presence matters, and that's a transformative experience for a lot of us who struggle with isolation and depression.
Who are the kind of people that can join these courses or sign up for this training?
If you go to gametogrow.org/training, you can see all of the training opportunities. There's opportunities to take workshops to be a better game master. Those game master workshops are applicable to any of those three different trees of our training program. But then the mental health practitioners, the expectation is that you're someone who is either currently working in or is soon to be studying to even work in a therapeutic setting. But sometimes, like educational support staff
Hmm.
want to take the mental health track because their mission and their goals are really to work on more therapeutic outcomes and educational outcomes. So we've seen some of individuals with that path join the training program for mental health practitioners. Then the educational path is more of your traditional classroom teacher. So they're looking at building and connecting the in-game scenarios in a TTRPG to educational outcomes. That might be literature, that might be math, that might be science, those kinds of things. And
Hmm.
then the third tree, the community tree, is how to run a game that is safe and supportive and inclusive, and that is open to literally anybody who wants to work on and be a better game master.
They sound like extremely interesting. And yeah, I just asked about it because I know here at Salford we have um, like a popular social care course and courses along the lines of therapy and a lot of people that want to go into education. So I just thought it'd be useful to have that information out there. Yeah, to go on to I guess more personal questions, if you're okay with that.
Sure.
Um, how has D&D, like, well, TTRPGs in general, I suppose, like helped you personally, and like what inspired Game to Grow actually?
So, Game to Grow is actually built on, like I mentioned earlier, I've been doing this for 10 years.
Mm,
Started off, I was in graduate school to study drama therapy and was in an after school context working with some youth. Where there was a after school program where I was an improv teacher, drama teacher,
mm,
and then facilitating, sort of overseeing the Dungeons and Dragons program. And the participants were just game mastering for each other. I wasn't the game master at the time. And then as I was studying drama therapy and utilizing the things that I was learning in my university in the improv group to help the participants, work on eye contact and connecting with each other and making meaningful relationships and collaborating, I realized that connected so well with Dungeons and Dragons as well. That what drama therapy is the intentional application of drama, games, and activities, a lot of which is scene work and role play and perspective taking. All that translated really nicely into Dungeons and Dragons as well. So then I became a game master for that group and then was running it for the youth. So before they were game mastering for each other, it was really just a sort of a structured social safe space where they could, with supervision, connect with each other. But as I became the game master, then I could connect the dots between the in-game scenarios to their real world areas of social growth, the same way that I would as an improv teacher do some scene work to work on self-advocacy. I can now build some scene work to connect to self-advocacy
mm.
into a game where now that socially reserved player is talking to the king to tell them to, prepare for the oncoming zombie army over the hills. Now that player gets to work on some of that self-advocacy and translate some of the successes of their character and that confidence back into themselves. So then that was where the spark started to fly around the potential for what this could be. And my then co-facilitator at the time, Adam Johns, we left that organization and started our own program that is what eventually became Game to Grow. So now we're a full nonprofit status in the United States. We have, I don't know if I mentioned this, 150 people a week come and participate in tabletop role-playing games for therapeutic outcomes, as well as Minecraft groups for therapeutic outcomes. We have both of those programs. We had a Magic the Gathering program as well. That one's a lot harder to do remotely. So we'll bring that one back once we have in-person groups again. And it really was the seeing that insight, seeing that the potential for what the participants got out of it was really what sparked that for us too. So a story I like to tell about this is I had two players in my game who were really fiercely antagonistic towards each other. They argued all the time. They would argue at the beginning of the game, during the game, after the game. When they got into their car to go home, argue the whole time. One of them was someone who really was kind of impulsive, wanted to just take care of business, didn't want to think about it or talk about it, just saw something, wanted to go in, tip of the spear first. The other one really wanted to plan everything out, really wanted to do all of the investigation checks, search through everything, insight checks before talking to anybody. So they were very different player styles. And so what I did in the game to sort of create some opportunity for insight around this is their party of adventurers came across this team of bandits who was carrying a captured creature, a monster with two heads, an Etten, and they realized that this Etten could really help them attack this castle and maybe overthrow this evil king. So they wanted to liberate the Etten. So they dispatched the bandits and then got the Etten to join them. But the Etten's two heads were conflicting personalities. One of them was a hot-headed improvising. The other one was a meticulous planner. And so they then needed to mediate that conflict.
Mm-hmm.
And then they actually named the two different heads of this creature. One was named George. One was named Maverick. And they with George and Maverick, they then, like, my player, who was himself, not prone to thinking ahead, had to tell his corresponding Etten head, hey, sometimes you got to slow down. Can't just run around punching things. And the other player had to tell his, corresponding personality Etten head, sometimes you can't think about everything forever. Sometimes you got to just do something. because the story doesn't go anywhere if you just overthink everything. And then over the course of them working out this two Etten head conflict, and I'm using my hands like this to be the two Etten heads so that it's clear, and I'm using different voices for both Etten heads. They got these two Etten heads to work together, and then they overthrew the kingdom with the Etten at their side. And over the course of playing the game together, those two players who had been so conflictual, they actually exchanged phone numbers to hang out outside of our program, and that was so important to see. They had hated each other, and now they actually not only wanted to see each other, but wanted to see each other more than they were already seeing each other, because we were thinking 75 minutes a week or something like that is all they had. So then that was one of those moments where it was like, this is really powerful. This is what we're doing here, is not just filling space where we can giggle together and have some shared mirth. This is really something that's able to access something deep into who we are and who we think we are. And that's what ended up becoming Game to Grow.
I mean, that story is amazing. Because it's just such a simple concept, but the fact that it works so well is, that's that's bold me for one. That one has.
Yeah, and we've had players who the only thing they look forward to leave the house every week is coming to their TTRPG game. And one of the parents in our group said, it's like my child is eating his vegetables without knowing he's eating his vegetables, because he wants to go, right? So a lot of kids who are in therapy, they don't want to go to therapy because therapy is not fun, it's not interesting, and so the parents will oftentimes have to bribe their kids to go to therapy. Maybe we'll get some ice cream afterwards, that kind of thing. And now what another parent said was that they actually tell their kid to do their homework or else they can't come to their therapeutic social skills group, which is that's flipping the script on what therapy often is for youth. So what's so meaningful about that is that a lot of these kids who are socially isolated and disconnected from the the area around them, they actually want to be with other people, and they're willing to do their homework so that they can be connecting with other people, which is really a really cool thing about this kind of intervention.
Yeah, that sounds amazing. I suppose another thing that you've mentioned is that now you've started going worldwide. Were you doing that before COVID, or did COVID kind of make you realize, oh wait, now everyone's using Zoom and or is on their computers a bit more? We have this opportunity.
It was the latter. So what we were doing before COVID is we had groups in Seattle, groups in Bellevue, groups in Kirkland, groups in Tacoma, and the little cities around Seattle proper where I live. And then we had a waiting list online. People could put themselves on the waiting list even if they weren't in Seattle. So we would have people join the waiting list from parts of America like Texas, from Kansas, from New York City, from Florida, occasionally someone from Malta, so some more remote locations that I was always having to let them know that was probably not going to happen anytime soon. But then when we transitioned to virtual because of COVID, we actually initially just transitioned our local groups, and it was a triage. We were worried that people were not going to even want to keep coming because it was no longer an in-person experience. And then what actually happened was the opposite. We saw all the people who were coming to our groups were extra grateful for the social contact, for the meaningful social contact and the relational social play that they could get out of this, especially because school has become so much more passive. It's hard to interact with 30 other people in a Zoom room. But the D&D experience or TTRPG experience is still so interactional and so relational, so social, that we then saw our waiting list just blew up. And we realized then that we could serve anybody. And we didn't need to even worry about geographic regions to cluster people either. So we have some groups have participants in the Western United States, Eastern United States, and Europe or Australia. So what's really neat about that is that then there's some cross-cultural pollination there too, that we can actually, because we're playing across the world, it's like when I was a kid, we had to have pen pals. right? And a pen pal is, you wait a couple of weeks and then you got your next piece of paper that says, my favorite food is and my favorite color is, and it's cool, but it's not like it's going to, change your
Yeah.
perspective on the world. But when we have participants in a group with different accents because they're from different parts of the country, or different accents because they're from different parts of the world, they have different cultural experiences that then we can share and create this sort of larger sense of community. And the fact that we're all part of the same human experience, I think, is really, I have big dreams about what the potential for that could be. People who can play together from different time zones and different cultures then can see each other as the same adventuring party seems like a recipe for a better world to me.
I mean, yeah, that that speaks volumes to me. Um, yeah, that's it is just super admirable what you are doing and what this charity is doing, and I hope that we have helped push it in a small direction towards that um goal of just making the world a better place
I love it. And I
as
think
it needs to
everyone
be.
just does their part. And I super appreciate what the society is doing in your area. And then how I can't, once again, just can't say enough how awesome it is that y'all banded together to support our nonprofit as well.
Well, again, I think this is the third time I've said it now. It was our pleasure doing it. Thank you so much for giving up your time for just this meeting, and I'm sure everyone will appreciate these thank you cards. I definitely wasn't expecting anything like that. Um, yeah, most of us just did it because I mean it's something that we love, and we wanted to help with this charity because obviously there's the stigma that TTRPGs that only anxious, socially inept nerds play them. Um, so we wanted to help break that stigma and help people just develop and stuff like that.
That's perfect. Thank you, Sam.
Thank you very much.